Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. All right, so audio is coming through okay. Fantastic. All right, so welcome back to another Firestorm stream. I know you were probably expecting to see Heather today, but unfortunately I'll be covering for her because she's not available. So you're going to get me for this afternoon. And we're going to continue with our A to Z of creature sculpting in Zbrush. That's what we do when we stream with me. My name is Pat Imrie, and welcome back to Firestorm. All right, so we finished up our Godzilla last night, so we finished up the letter G yesterday, and today we're going to start with the letter H. And depending on how well this goes, we might finish with H. It depends. We're going to be making a hippopotamus, or a hippo. Mainly because I've never sculpted a hippo before, and I thought it would be quite a lot of fun to do. So we'll see how we go. Let me just bring up the reference I have on the other screen here. The image reference I have up is a royalty-free image, just to give you a bit of an idea. We're not going to be using this image as reference directly. We'll just have it sitting there for everybody to take a look at as needed. So yeah, I hope everyone has had a good morning so far and that you're busying away with your afternoon. If you have any queries or questions, feel free to fire them into the chat and we will get stuck in with our hippo. But it's really nice to have you all here, and for a lot sooner than I expected. But yes. Hey Manic, thanks very much for coming along. Okay, so what do we want to do? As always, folks, if this is your first time on one of the Firestorm streams, if it's maybe your first time watching one of my streams, our A to Z of creatures in Zbrush is where we take a letter of the alphabet, we pick a creature beginning with that letter, and then we sculpt it cold on the stream. The only preparation that I give myself is finding reference, and then when we're on the stream I will procrastinate and ramble and talk a little bit until I've decided in my head what it is I want to actually do with it. Really excited about the hippo. Oh, brilliant, thanks Manic. I don't know if I'll be doing the full skull or anything like that, but you are right. Hippos have really crazy looking skulls. It does not really compute you know, what their skull looks like in response to their head. It's kind of cool. So, but with that in mind, let's just start sketching, shall we? So how do we want to begin? How will we begin? I think we're going to go for we'll go for a blockout method for this one. So I'm going to start with a sphere. I'm going to make that a polymesh 3D, and then I'm going to go into geometry, open up my Dynamesh rollout, I'm going to lower the resolution, turn off blur, and just hit Dynamesh. And I'll keep lowering that until I get something that I'm actually happy with. There we go. I'll hit mirror and weld, just to clean up the topology a little bit. And I am going to use that for just the back of the head and maybe onto the neck. So I'm going to grab my move brush and just start kind of working this out. So something like this. And one of the things as well, folks, is whenever you're doing creatures like this, or just any kind of sculpt in ZBrush, if you've never worked on anything before, don't be disparaged if it doesn't work out the first time, because that's the whole point of sculpting something new. Staying in your comfort zone and sculpting things that you're used to doing all the time, you're not going to progress as an artist if you don't push yourself out of your comfort zone. All right, so just bear that in mind. So I've got the rough neck here. I think we'll go for kind of like a bust for the hippo, similar to how we did Godzilla. And then with the hippopotamus, there is another kind of spherical part for just the underside of the head. That's what I'm looking at here. It's quite spherical underside, but there's a very rectangular shape to the head as well. So we will add in another sphere here. And again, we're doing things slightly differently. We're keeping the momentum, trying out different ways to block out and structure our characters. And I think what I'll do here is, yeah, no, we'll leave it as a sphere. We'll dynamesh that as well. As always, folks, hey Polly, thanks very much for coming along. As always, if you have any questions or queries about what it is that we're doing here or anything to do with Firestorm or the industry as a whole, please feel free to ask in the chat and I will answer those questions if I can. Okay, so I'm then going to go in and add, I'm going to append a Q cube. I'm going to initialize that into a Q cube like so, just to give myself a little bit more. Okay. Move that back in. And again, I've never sculpted a hippopotamus before, so this is kind of new territory for me. And then I think what we'll do is we will append. Now you could do this with an insert mesh brush. Are you sculpting exact pose, or at the moment I am just doing asymmetrical head at the moment. There is something that we should probably do next though, Polly. You're right, we haven't done one of them for a while. We should probably do that as the next thing we do. We'll maybe put it into a pose. So I'm going to take this cylinder, and I don't need to do much with it, I don't think, but what I might do is smooth it a couple of times, delete the lower subdivs, and then turn it into a dynamesh. And I'll do this quite a lot if I'm specifically trying to make a certain shape that I need for the creature I want to make or the character that I want to make. So I'll do something like this. I'm just going to zoom into one of my references here because there we go, that's better. So what I'm doing here, folks, is just blocking it out in the most simple shapes I can think of. Because again, I've never sculpted a hippopotamus before, so this is, as I said, this is new territory for me. So we're going to jump over to, this is actually going to turn out into kind of the head a little bit, I think, as well as the neck, but we're going to use it for the top of the head, I think. But we're going to use the insert mesh brush here. I'm going to choose a capsule, and I'm going to drag that out like so, and just move that into position at the back here. We're going to change the shape of this, of our cube at the front, so we'll just pull that forward a bit. Okay. And then what do we need? We need probably another cube here, but this time we're going to append it, Q cube, sorry, not Q cube, standard cube, and we'll initialize that into a Q cube. Move it forward, and I'm going to subdivide it a couple of times so that I get this, I get a cube, but I get a cube with rounded off corners. And there's loads of ways that you could approach this. Again, remember that, folks. What I'm showing you here, you can do it as many different ways as you want. So whatever makes you feel comfortable and allows you to get the shape that you want. And more importantly, it's about understanding that shape. Okay, it's being able to understand and interpret the rest of the form of the creature. Okay, so what I'm going to do now at this point is I'm going to start shaping it so that I can more easily decide where I want things to go. And I think I need to bring these forward a bit. And we're going to turn on local symmetry here. So we do something like that. Oh, I've screwed that up, haven't I? Let's just fix that. There we go. There we go. That's what we wanted. I'm going to take this cube and we're going to go into the Z modeler here. Just add in a couple of edge loops. And I know there's probably loads of ways that people will do this in Z modeler, but this is just how I do it. I approach it from the way I would do it in Maya. So I just want to give myself something that looks like that. There we go. That's better. And then I'm going to simply just hold down, I'm going to delete the subdivisions on this, hold down Control, and just copy that. So I've got something that looks like this, and we're going to do the same with this part here. We're going to delete the lower subdivisions, Control click, and then I'm going to rotate it round, make it thinner, and bring it up like so. Scale it down as necessary. We'll take the sphere here, and I think what we'll do is we're going to do something that I was planning on doing, but I decided against it, is I'm actually going to scale it out like so. I'm going to start replicating where that giant kind of masseter muscle is going to go on the mandible. Okay. Do we want something that looks like that? I'll simply go to mirror, merge into one subtool. There we go. And I'm just blocking out the shapes here. I think as well, I'm going to change how I've done the eyes. I don't think that shape's really working for me. So I think what we're going to do instead is we'll do spheres again. So we'll append a sphere and we'll turn it into a Dynamesh. So a lot of the same kind of approaches here, folks. Not doing anything too crazy. What I am going to do though is rotate that so I can move it down like so. Let's see. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. It's quite large at the moment, but I'm okay with that. And I'm going to take my trim dynamic here and I'm just going to flatten that out. and then do mirror. There we go. We can start to see, I hope anyway, we can start to see a hippo emerging from this. So there we go. Yeah. So we're going to have to now put in our ears. So we will, again, we're going to append a cube. We will initialize that into a Q cube. And as always, there's really fast ways of doing this. You can use macros and whatnot. I'm just showing you how to do it from scratch, if you've just in case you've never done it before. And when you initialize the Q cube, you can change the resolution, but if you forget to, just go into your ZModeler brush, make sure that you're in insert edge loop mode by holding down space over an edge and choosing insert. That's going to allow you to delete any edge loops using the Alt key. Subdivide that a couple of times, get it looking smooth, and now we can start shaping out an ear. They've got quite interesting ears. I mean, hippos are just fantastic animals. They really are. They're just really great animals. It's one of the reasons that I was so excited to do this series. Is because of just how much I love animals. Animals are just so much fun to create. And I have to obviously give credit to Holly Watt, who gave me the idea for doing this A to Z of ZBrush creatures. So you can thank her. If you're enjoying this series, you can thank her. Okay. So we've taken that a little bit further. But I need to make sure that we get this in the right place. So it sits on this little section here. There we go. Do a mirror and weld. So what we'll do first though is we will go to geometry, delete lower, and mirror and weld. Oh, not mirror and weld, sorry, my apologies. Just the mirror options. There we go. So let's go back to the neck. And I'm going to mask this and do split unmasked points so it's separated from that top part of the cranium. And then I will start to expand this out a bit. Let's get some reference here. Sorry, what's this? They're terrifying. They kill more humans than lions. Yes, I have heard that hippos do tend to kill a lot of people every year. But when you see how large they are, you can kind of understand how easy it would be to get hurt by one of these kind of crazy things. And if you've also ever looked at the skeleton of a hippo, they are fascinating. 3D Manic mentioned it earlier on. They've got very alien looking skulls. So now that I've got that kind of blocked out, I'm just going to now check from above. Okay, so something's went wrong. So I've moved something by accident here. So what we'll do is we'll just do a mirror and weld on all of this. And this is another good point for, working at very low resolutions, is that if you make a mistake early on, you're very likely going to catch it than you will if you've got more going on. And secondly, it's easier to fix. It's way easier to fix a problem when it's kind of low res like this. So what we're going to do is we've actually got some neck muscles, because I do have an anatomy statue for it here as well. So I'm just going to take my clay brush, just indicate where that is going to be, smooth it back ever so slightly. Make sure that I'm doing everything that I need to, make sure everything's in the right place. So something like that, which means I have done something wrong. We need to bring this forward like that. There we go. That's better. I was trying to figure out why I was not really, something wasn't feeling right, and that's what it is. There we go. So we're going to take this master now and start to reshape it and start using it to fill in more of the shape here. I went and of course don't have symmetry on, don't I? Fool of a took. Right, okay, so what we'll do then, we will just mask this out. We'll go into deformation and we'll just do a quick smart resim. That's better. Make sure that we have proper symmetry on this time. There we go. What's this, poly? I think the way you're blocking it right now would help me with a horse sculpt I was doing some time ago. Yeah, that's the thing. Break it down. Break it down into the most simplest shapes that you can think of. And stay there. Stay with it until you're comfortable that you've got everything in the right place. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm kind of cheating a little bit with this master, and it's becoming more this full side of the head with a bit of fatty tissue in there as well. But there we go. Okay. So let's take a bit more of a look at the front here. So this has to now start coming back a bit to get a bit more of that shape in. We also have, we can reshape the side of it with the trim dynamic brush here. Just bring that down. I'm going to do an auto group here so that I can mask out the top section and just start widening that out. There we go. That's better. They have really strange mouths. The way that the actual mouth shape goes with it kind of curls up really at a really kind of strict angle. Something like that. There we go. The key that I would say one of the things that you're aiming for whenever you're doing something like this is you want it to be recognizable as the creature you're making without actually having to put any detail on it, right? You should be able to show this to someone and go, and the first thing that pops into their head, that's what it should be, a hippo. That's your goal. And I've said many times before that I think we'll do, what do we append? Yeah, we'll append a sphere here. Is that this kind of stage that you're at here, you'd probably do this within, or you would aim to do this within, you know, the first half an hour. I don't know how long we've been streaming for about half an hour. So maybe a bit quicker if you're not kind of doing like a demonstration of it. Okay. So that's kind of squeezed into shape. We'll go into geometry and we'll just lower that down and Dynamesh it. A wee bit lower, I think. Mirror and weld. And I love this kind of shape that we have here. Let me get the magnifying glass out. I love this shape at the top of the skull, okay? And that's something I'm going to use. So when you're observing your reference, you really have to actually take in some of the shapes. Look at some of those interesting shapes that you can use as a marker. It'll be really helpful for gauging the depth, the distance of parts of the anatomy and different kind of key features on your creature, okay? And the reason that I'm saying this is that obviously you could bring the image in as a reference under ZBrush or Maya or Blender or whatever it is that you're using, but something I would strongly recommend is learning to observe it from a distance. Observe your reference from a distance on another monitor, on a printout. It doesn't matter, but try not to trace as often, particularly when you are just starting out. Learn to observe your reference and interpret it, and you will become a better artist if you do that. That was something I was told it by two separate people, my high school art teacher and my life drawing teacher as well, when I went to college. So, and it has stood the test of time. So we'll jump back over to this and we can add in a couple more edge loops. If we really wanted to, we could probably Dynamesh this object now at this stage and then use that to get a little bit of form. Again, using it as a landmark, because now I know, I'm going to show you why I'm doing this. Let's bring this picture up a bit. I now know that as I bring this down, that the ball that I've created for that whole eye cavity, that whole kind of orbital socket, I can now indicate to myself that the curve here at the top, that roughly lines up with the curve here, and then there's a new curve coming down to kind of create where the eyebrow is going to go, and then from there, there's another curve coming down towards the nose, and I'm looking at all of that all the time, okay? That's what I'm looking at when I'm kind of working through this concept. Now, I need to find a underside shot of that'll do. Perfect. So we'll grab the nose again and we'll start to reshape the face a bit more, make it a bit more realistic. It's looking a bit cartoony at this point. How are we doing? Okay, yeah, we've got quite a few people watching. This is great. Welcome everyone to another Firestorm stream. Again, if you were expecting to see Heather and are sorely disappointed, I'm very sorry. I'm covering for Heather today. So we're just continuing with my series on sculpting, A to Z of sculpting inside a ZBrush. Oh, this one needs fixed as well. There we go. Also, notice how kind of brutal I'm being, okay? Dye your hair pink and I'll forgive you. I guess you won't be forgiving me then, because I'm not dyeing my hair pink. But nice try, Pete, and thank you very much for coming along. Yeah, look how, just take note of how brutal I'm being when it comes to changing things on my model. I see a mistake, I just fix it, unfollow. Don't worry, don't kind of worry too much at this stage. Just focus on blocking in the forms. This is one of the key things where you can say that topology does not matter. We're not worried about topology at this point. We don't need to worry about topology until we actually re-topologize this. To August 1793, thank you very much for the follow. Much appreciated. So at this stage, I can start to see I'm starting to see it coming to life a bit. So I just need to make sure that I've got the distance right here. The top is looking fine, but I'm a bit concerned about the mouth at this point. because depending on the reference you have, there can be a lot of foreshortening going on. So this is why it's important to have front, side, 3/4 when you're building up your reference. Now, I do have that on my other screen, but I have one image where it's actually the image that we used for the marketing of this, for the advert, if you saw it on Instagram. And there's a lot of foreshortening going on for the mouth. So it looks like the mouth comes further back into the face than it does. And that's just because of how the lens is being compressed, or how the lens is compressing the image. So that's something to be very wary about whenever you're selecting reference for a project. Try and make it as varied as possible, and a side profile, whether or not it's a creature or a human or a likeness, a side profile will be far more useful to you than a front on shot, okay? Because a side profile is going to give you the correct depth of someone's face rather than a foreshortened front view. Okay, so I think what I now need to do next is I'm going to do a little bit of work on the eyes here. They're a little bit high res, so let's go into Dynamesh and just lower it. Oh, that's way too low. Oops. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, that'll do. Okay, I can work with that. And what I'll do now is I'm going to start pulling these together and just filling in the gaps. Large shapes. Just pull this mouth back a bit. Another thing to look at is comparative anatomy, because that will, if you are more used to doing humans, then take a look at comparative anatomy and how similar the anatomy is of all mammals. You'll be very surprised if it's not something you've looked at before. It's an interesting area to look at. I'm going to pull the top of the nose in here a little bit because I want to thin it out. And I'm missing something here on the side of the head. I'm missing an element that I want to add in. So let me just take a look at the anatomy I have of it. And in here, for the anatomy of a hippopotamus, is we have our masseter, our large kind of muscle coming up here. It goes just underneath the eyes, like so. And we actually have quite a big gap. So I've actually overlaid this a little bit far. So I'm going to pull this forward. And then there's a lot extra. Nadi, Geo6, thank you very much for the follow. Much appreciated. And I have a very low resolution reference image here from Yoon's Anatomy. That's someone I would recommend that you check out. Is Yoon's Anatomy. The models that he has for sale are fantastic for all types of creatures. They are expensive and they do take a while to be delivered, but they are worth it. I have one of his chimpanzee models and I cannot recommend it more. So, okay. See, I'm in two minds now whether or not to add more separate shapes in, or if we just Dynamesh this together and we start sculpting. But I think I want to do a bit more to the eyes. So we're going to start sculpting a wee bit here. And I'm going to just kind of roughly indicate where I want the eyes to go, about here. And then we're going to have a little bit of a brow just in here. And then we've got a section coming up here. Right, so we are going to have to start bringing this all together. At least some parts of it. just noticed something I need to fix on the neck. Grab the standard brush, and sculpt in just a few markers that I need, and smooth that back. There we go. Now, that ear needs to be a tiny bit smaller. Let's get some eyeballs in here too. And this is something I do a lot. Whenever I'm making a model, even if it's in a really low res state, I do like to try and keep everything, I do like to try and create everything at once. And that's really going to help me visualize the proportions. It helps me visualize the creature much easier when I'm not working. Holly, what? Hey, Holly, we were talking about you. Hi, folks. Say hello to Holly in the chat. Holly is the is actually the mastermind behind this this series. She was the one that gave me the idea. So, I'm going to subdivide that a bit so that I can start. And let me just see what I can find. I'm very excited for H. H is for hippo indeed. There we go. There's a good shot of right, okay, so that's going to go like this. And I'm just going to start blocking out the main forms of the eye so that I make sure that I get them the right size more than anything. I'm just going to pull this in a bit. There we go. And again, just to really sound like a stuck record, folks, the reason that myself and other artists talk about blocking out primary forms first is that you don't actually need much in the way of form to create the shape that you need to kind of indicate that that this is a real creature. You know, you can see I don't have a lot of detail here, but we know that that's an eyeball. You know, we know that that's we know that that's an eye socket, right? So here's where I've made a bit of a mistake. So I'm going to just pull this back in, soften that back. That is going to kind of, this area here in the middle needs to be a bit higher, so we're just going to plump that up a bit. And then it's going to come down pretty fast. I'm going to take the eyeball and mirror it across. And we're going to save that. We're going to save our file here. So, probably a good idea. I'm terrible on live streams for not saving. Something that has bitten me in the ass a couple of times. When we did Fizzgig from the Dark Crystal, I was actually saving the file. I hadn't saved it for about an hour. I was saving, and then Zbrush crashed while I was saving, and it corrupted my file. So I ended up having to kind of resculpt a lot of it for the next session. That was a bit embarrassing. All right, so I think now what I'm going to do is I will add in a little bit more into here, but I'm going to use an insert mesh brush for this. And we're just going to insert a polysphere just into here, flatten it down. I'm just going to use this as a bit of filler for myself. It might not work the way I want, but it might just fill this section in and give me some more form. Think of it as I'm just adding extra clay into here, if you were doing this as a clay sculpture. I'm not trying to replicate any particular muscle or anything here. I'm simply just adding some fatty tissue and some form. I am, however, trying to outline where the lips are going to go, where the kind of cheek is going to go, the compression for the mouth. Okay. And we will finish this up by taking the trim dynamic. And this, you know what, actually, we're not going to do that. We're going to use our insert mesh brush again. Ba, 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 ba. There we go. Polysphere. And just drag that over here. I'm going to use this to fill in any gaps that I need. Any gap that I'm not overly happy with, I can add it in. And having it broken up like this does give me a lot of leeway, because it allows you to, you can separate out muscle areas, you can separate different planes, you know, any kind of form change, you can separate it out. And you can see, like I said earlier, that we now have, I can confidently say that looks like a hippopotamus. It looks like a hippo. I'm quite happy with that. I'm going to take this part here and bring it forward. Just fill in the gaps. Like so. Take this bit at the back and, oh, how are we doing? Okay, we're 47 minutes in. Not bad. And we've almost finished, I would say, our block out. There's one thing I've messed up here on the ears, and that's that they have these little stalks that they sit on. So we're going to get some, we're going to add in some cylinders here. So we're going to append a cylinder. I'll go down to initialize and turn it into a Q cylinder, which will automatically make it smaller and it'll lower the resolution. And then I can bring this in to here, squat it down. In fact, you know what? We're going to try something a little bit different here. Switch back over to the ears and just move them out. And I'm going to position this first. But this time I'm going to take the Z modeler brush and I'm just going to add in a few more edge loops. And then I'm going to go into the gizmo options here, go to bend curve, and I want to add another bit of resolution here and just move that up. Just bend it into shape. Just another alternative, instead of using the, instead of having to use the move brush, if you want to do something a bit cleaner, you can do by using the gizmo. Go into accept, and then we can reposition the ears. And then to marry them all up, let me just see if that looks okay. I've made them a bit too long, not a problem. So I'm going to take this now and subdivide it once, and then I can smooth it into place. Nice, sorry, I went lurking while I eat. Not a problem, not a problem, Manic. How are we doing? Okay. So yes, folks, we're coming up for about an hour. So I'm going to do the usual spiel that we do. Just a wee reminder for anyone who has just joined us or has joined us for the first time, welcome to another Firestorm Studios live stream. My name is Pat, and we are working through this A to Z of Zbrush creatures. And if you're new to Firestorm in general, if you want to find out more about us, please feel free to check in the banner at the bottom of the stream, and you will find links to all of our social medias. You'll find us over on Twitch, Instagram, and YouTube. And if you want to, you can follow us on Discord. It's a really cool community. You will learn a lot there. There's a lot of there's a lot of fantastic artists there that are willing to help you out and kind of bring you into the fray, if you will. So please do check out our Discord and join. You will not be disappointed. And a lot of the time, if you are interested in chatting to any of the Firestorm team, if you follow someone in particular, you really enjoy their streams, you might get a chance to chat to them in the voice channels there as well. In Your Dreams is now following. Thank you very much, I appreciate it. I'm just going to take this little cylinder I made, and I'm going to do a mirror, merge into one subtool, and now I'm just going to do a form check, because there is something that I feel is missing, and I think it's the side of the head. I don't think I've really given myself enough structure, so I'm going to look up the skull, and yes, that's exactly what I've done. Bad Pat. Okay, so we'll go and create ourselves another cylinder. Do we want to do a cylinder? Yeah, we'll do a cylinder. And we'll go into initialize, Q cylinder, and we will just rotate that round, bring it out. And just readjust this. So we're just going to kind of give ourselves a bit more structure around the kind of zygomatic area, okay? Just check the resolution here. Yeah, that's okay. That's better. Okay, I'm happier already. Yeah, that's better. There was something bugging me. There was something bugging me. So we'll mirror that across as well. And like I was saying earlier, folks, this is kind of what you want to go for. You want to be able to say, right, here's my model. I've barely done any sculpting. We've used a couple of brushes, but most of it's been the move brush and our clay brush, just to kind of adjust things a little bit. But we can see that this is unmistakably a hippopotamus. So there we go. Right, so let's smooth that out a bit. I'm now just going to check my references. I just want to make sure that I've got everything in the right place before we move on. There is more under here that I don't have. Because the hippopotamus does have quite a lot of blubber on it. So we'll just go ahead and do a new Dynamesh for that. So I'm going to increase it a bit. And oh, way too high. Whoa, what are we doing? What are we doing? He's a madman. Okay, mirror and weld. Smooth all that back. There we go. And I'm going to do a bit more cleanup on this back neck section as well. Just taking the trim dynamic, and I'm going to clean up some of the form. And I'm using the trim dynamic here to plane away sections of it. So what we're saying, it sounds kind of counterproductive, but in a way, you're creating a very, very smooth, hard surface by just planing away each a small layer at a time. And what this will do is it's going to give you an organic look, but it's going to remove a lot of the lumpiness and bumpiness that can sometimes appear when you're sculpting, particularly at higher resolutions. Okay. We might want to maybe put this on a plaque or something if it was a 3D print, as an example. I know a lot of people like to do 3D prints, so it is something that we can obviously look at. And if you really wanted a nice clean shape, we could take our, not our knife circle, our knife curve, turn off perspective and just do that. Okay. All right. So let's take another quick look at the shape here. So now we can start bringing in a bit more detail. So I'm going to take my clay brush, and now that this is all kind of in place, I'm just going to start building up the form under the neck. They've got so many rolls, I love them. I don't know how you can't like hippopotamuses. Now, I'm just using a clay brush here, but I guess I would be a bit remiss if I didn't mention a way to kind of add a bit more weight. Hasn't Heather been chased one? I believe she has been, but she was the one that suggested a hippo, so I don't know. But I would be remiss if I never mentioned that there is a way to add a bit more weight to these rolls, okay? So what we're going to do here is in the brush menu, if you go into the depth option under your brush, there's an option called gravity strength at the bottom here, and we're just going to increase it a little bit. And what that will do is, depending on how I have my camera orientated, and it might be quite subtle, but it's going to weight the curve or the stroke in the direction of the camera. And that's going to give me, for free, just a little bit of extra weight. Thanks very much, Nico. How are you doing? We appreciate the likes. And we're just going to smooth it back as we go. Now, you also might find that as you're sculpting in Zbrush, it can sometimes be a bit hard to see what you're doing. And what I mean by that is you'll see that we've got some very harsh shadows. And that is by nature of the material and the lighting, which is why on my toolbar here, I have an interactive light. So as I move that around, I can actually adjust how the light is affecting the surface, which is very important when you're sculpting. You want to kind of adjust it, move it, alter, just so you can see how that form is reacting. And it's going to allow you to kind of underlight something so that you can see what you're doing. But it might be a bit much, so we'll kind of knock it back. I'm just going to take my damn standard here and start to put that into place. There we go. But the other option you have, if you are finding it kind of difficult to see what you're doing, is to change the type of material you have. So, oh no, I don't like that. That's not, it's better. So if I go into my material type here, we can switch to something like a matte cap, and this can sometimes be a lot easier to sculpt with, because it's going to light the material, the actual object, in a different way. So I'm actually going to use one of my favorite matte caps here. I'm going to go into my materials, and what's this? Substance Painter has a pretty neat light following the camera thing. I think Zbrush could have that too. Yes, that would be quite useful. That would definitely be quite useful. just going to find a good sculpting. Let me see. Yeah, that could do quite well. I want you guys to be able to see it. There we go. Again, if it's becoming hard to see what I'm sculpting, folks, please do let me know in the chat, okay? Because the whole point of this is that you should be able to clearly see what it is I'm sculpting, and if you can't, then I'm not doing my job right. So I'm going to now just start bringing in a bit more weight underneath here. And also, I want to point out, I'm calling this large area, I was kind of calling it a master muscle. It's not the actual master muscle, not completely. I'm kind of using it as a kind of mix for form, flat, you know, fatty tissue, all that type of stuff. What's this? Usually skin shade works relatively even. They lighten the entire model. That's a good point. Manic has pointed out that if you use Skin Shade 4, it will light your model very well. Okay, and then you can add in a tint to it using the color wheel like this. Okay. But unfortunately, I have found, and this is the thing, the reason I don't use that often when I'm doing a live stream is it's very, very bright and contrasty on some people's monitors, which is why I tend to try and keep things a little bit noisier with a bit more color. ID. Ayede, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but you have a question. How long have I been sculpting for? I have been sculpting, oh, let me think here. I've been in the industry for 18 years, but I didn't actually start sculpting in Zbrush until I think 2010. So yeah, I think 2009, 2010. I learned how to use it and then went away from it again and focused more on a software called Modo. Because I actually, there was a part during my career where I switched away completely from Maya and ZBrush into a piece of software called Modo, which at the time was owned by a company called Luxology. Then it was bought by the Foundry, and sadly it's been discontinued, which is a real shame because Modo, and unfortunately after the Foundry bought it, it kind of got forgotten about. But Modo was a fantastic subdivision modeler, probably the best out there. And I would personally say it had the best modeling tool set of any software that was available. Now, sadly, Softimage XSI, Autodesk discontinued that in 2014. In my opinion, it had the best modeling tool set for polygon modeling by far. And that goes for anything that we have today. So yeah, it's a shame that it, you know, but anyway, sorry, slight digression, but yes, yeah, so I moved over to Modo, and then yeah, I moved back over to ZBrush, and yeah, I was sculpting for, yeah, and I've been sculpting in it for, since 2010, I would say, yeah. I was kind of still learning it again in 2010, but yeah, so 16 years, a long time. A long time. Okay, so what I'm now doing is, and this is something that you should do a lot of as well, I'm just analysing my creature's form. What I like, what I don't like, what I feel I need to maybe tweak to start making it more realistic. I'm going to lower the intensity of my smooth brush. Actually, while I'm on that topic, oh dang, I've done it again, haven't I? There we go. Turned off my symmetry. This is what happens when you put your keyboard in a position that you cannot see. So you end up blindly hitting keys and then you end up pressing the wrong thing. So yes, I hope that answers your question, Idea. I've been sculpting for 16 years. And in that time, I still haven't sculpted a hippo. This is the first time I've ever sculpted a hippo. So there we go, that's looking better. And I want to take this and move this up as well. So now I'm starting to refine my forms, my primary forms. No details yet, just primary forms. I think I want to... No, I think actually, I might have actually got the shape of that the way I want it. That's fine. Okay, so I'm going to jump back to the nose here and I'm going to subdivide it once, or this front part of the mouth. And the reason I want to do that is I want to add a bit of detail to things like the nostrils and things like that, just to kind of indicate where they're going to go. So they're much higher on the head, which makes sense when you think of how much time they spend in the water. And actually, to be fair, this is an put my teeth back in. This is an instance where we could actually do a little bit more work here. We could actually add in a little bit more geometry to help us. So we're going to go to an insert mesh brush. We're going to grab polysphere, and I'm going to plop them on top like so. Reshape them a bit. And scale it up a bit like that. Maybe move them apart. There we go. What's this? First 2 years in the industry was spent on sculpting a lot of fish, but not a hippo as of yet either. Amazing. Well, Pat, what coincidence, I actually started Zbrush around 2020. Oh, cool, Manic. I didn't realise that. That's awesome. Jacob is raiding us. Jacob, thank you very much. We're being raided by a former student of mine. I really appreciate the raid. Firestorm appreciates the raid. Thank you. As do I. Thank you very much. It's good to have you here. I think I got into ZBrush around 2015. Our university was unfortunate. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear you didn't have a good experience at university. On the ad right now. Figured out the raid button though. Amazing. Thanks, Jacob. Okay, so let's now... I've made the front of this quite big, but I'm all right with that. I'm okay with this. This is... Yeah. So we're going to start... I think we're going to start subdividing things together, but I'm going to be careful here because I don't want to merge the lower jaw. Similar to when we did Godzilla, I don't want to merge them together yet because I still want to keep them separated so that I can sculpt them a bit easier. But what I can do is I can take the lower jaw and split that out so it's on its own. You can see all the parts we've got here, so we will need to start doing a bit of consolidation. So I'm going to take the head here. So we've got the back of the neck, and I'm going to merge that down. And I'm going to keep my polygroups on so you can see how this is merging together, right? So we've got the merge to the head, and then what's the next part? Yeah, we can merge those down together as well. Merge down, okay. And then we'll take these parts. Okay, so in here, even though I'm not sure if I'm going to need it or not yet, I do want to separate out this section. So split unmasked points, and I'm going to move that down to the bottom, along with the lower part of the jaw. And then I'm going to continue merging these down. And again, they're not fused together yet. They're just separate pieces. But I am being very careful about how I merge them down. So I'm going to move the eyes up, merge those down. We've got our middle part. So we're going to do that as well, merge that down. And then we've got our ears, so we're going to move the eyes down. And I think we can probably just be quite confident in merging the rest down, like so. bring this down as well. There we go. All right, so we're doing a bit of housekeeping here. I'm going to append a cube, scale it down, and I'm going to move that to the top of my subtool stack. And it's just going to sit in the middle of my model, and I'm going to save that. I'm going to now use that as my save file. So let me just pop this into, where are we? Projects, Hippo. There we go. And as I've said before, this is something I do as frequently as I can, is I will try to consolidate my meshes just to kind of keep my subtool stack as quiet, as clean as possible. And if you can't merge anything down, then I would suggest using a group. Okay, so if you ever want to use a group in ZBrush, or a folder if you will, is you take one of the objects, go to new folder, name the folder, hit enter, and then you can click and drag your items into it. Okay, I'm going to take the eyeballs here and we're going to give them a color. And a material. So I'm going to turn this to toy plastic. I'm going to make sure that I have mRGB turned on, and I'm going to do a fill object. And now when I switch back to my sculpting material, the hippo has some nice dark eyes. Oh, what's this? It's nothing new. Most of people studying art don't. I can barely recall my uni days. They were so redundant. I have an MBA in marketing degree sitting in the cupboard somewhere. I think the problem is that with what we do as an interest, as a passion, as a hobby, as a career, it's evolving all the time, constantly evolving. So it's very, very hard for universities to keep up. And a lot of universities do a really, really good job of keeping up with the current affairs of things as much as they can. But of course, some of them are not going to be able to do that. And unfortunately, if you have studied at one of them, then that's an unfortunate circumstance to be in. One of the great things about universities though, and doing a degree, is that it trains you in a lot of other aspects. It allows you to learn a lot of other really important skills that can be useful to you in life. And also university gives you a few years to just experiment with different subjects, different approaches to things, depending on your choice of career path. But if you do animation or visual effects, then you can try out rigging, modeling, all this kind of stuff. Okay, so there is benefits to it, but I do understand where people are coming from as well. I get that. I get the frustrations. So I'm now going to just move in here and start reshaping the face a bit, even though nothing is connected yet. There we go. And I'm going to adjust the size of the lip here. Then I can take the lower one and bring that directly up. Just going to thin it down. There we go. And I'm going to use my move brush here to start reshaping this. Just pull it down like that. Do the same on the other side. There we go. Starting to add a bit more shape into this now. Start to refine it, make it a bit more realistic, take it away from being so simple. I just need to check my reference here. Surprisingly difficult to find that side-on reference, but we'll find it. There we go. And I also want to take, so I'm going to step this back a little bit and do a bit of reshaping first. So the mouth is quite large, like so, and it is shaped a bit like a W. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of an interior to the mouth here, and it is very wide. But then again, that's what we know. That's kind of that, it's that telltale signature of a hippopotamus, is the fact that it's got a really wide mouth. But we're going to jump back to this here, and we're going to save the scene again, and we're going to merge this together. So we're going to go into our gizmo here, remesh by union. I'm going to make sure that I turn off symmetry. I'm so bad for that. I always forget to leave, that I've left it on. Remesh by union. And as always, folks, we'll just take a look to see what that's done. You can see that our model is now connected, and Zbrush has just added triangles along each of these sections, okay, to kind of bring that all together. Just going to turn on double, make sure there's no weird pieces of geometry hiding inside, because sometimes there can be. Yeah, there we go. So this is the only downside to merging, remeshing by union. You might end up with little bits of geometry inside your model, so you might have to just go in and clean those up, which is what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to mask that, there we go. Do a delete hidden. Oh, wait a minute, my apologies. What did I do there? This can sometimes be a little bit annoying in Zbrush when you're trying to, there we go, and then we invert that and just do a delete hidden. That gets rid of that part. Okay, now that it's actually been connected and we've done a remesh by union, how are we doing for time? 1 minute, okay, 1 hour 20, folks. So, I'm just going to check on the chat here. All right, going to go for dinner, have a good tune. Thanks, Jacob. Personally, a huge proponent of one-to-one teaching. If you have a thing you want to do, nothing will teach you more than having a regular mentorship with a skilled person you look up to. I tend to agree as well with you. I think if you really want to lock in and focus on one specific thing, finding someone who is skilled in that, and then, like you say, learning from them is a fantastic way to kind of get a bit of a head start. But it's also really important to learn from others as well. You know, get different viewpoints from different places. You don't have to take all the advice on and kind of put it into your workflow, but yes, I completely agree. I think one-to-one mentorships are an important thing to kind of consider with your training and your education, because you sometimes get more bang for your buck in that regard as well. Okay, so, and I would be remiss if I didn't say, please check out Firestorm Studios, because Firestorm Studios do offer mentorships. If there is a streamer on the platform, there's a good chance that they do a mentorship. So I'm just going to start adding a bit more form here. But before I do that, what I should probably do is actually fuse this stuff. So we're going to smooth it all back using Sculptris Pro. In fact, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I think I'm going to Dynamesh it. We've done a lot of the Sculptris Pro method here. I want to go back to the Dynamesh. So we're going to geometry. I'm going to control click in my kind of timeline here, my undo timeline, just to save the state of this model. And if I want to be really sure, I can go into morph target and store a morph target there. All right. Next, I'm going to go into geometry, go into Dynamesh, and then I'm going to take the blur off. I'm going to click on the picker button here and drag that over to the highest density mesh I have. And that's telling me that I need about 64 in my resolution to accurately fill in all this detail. But I'm going to increase it a little bit higher just to allow for any surprises. And do you know what I'm actually going to do? I might save this file, folks, for people who want to sculpt their own hippo. This might be quite useful for people. I might save this out and just kind of make that available to people. So bear with me. There we go. And then I'm going to resave that again as there we go. The other day we were trying to explain to someone in one of the Discord channels who spent 1 year learning very basic anatomy for free through YouTube. Yes, so YouTube is a fantastic platform for learning, okay, because a lot of the stuff is free. However, the problem with having an abundance of training material is that you're not always going to get the right type of training material, okay? You might be being taught something that isn't really the best approach or is possibly in some regards wrong. So you have to be very wary about what you learn and what you take on board, okay? And that's again why a one-to-one mentorship or a workshop that you can purchase is sometimes a really good way to go, all right? That's not to say that there isn't amazing free resources out there. There's amazing free resources. You just have to be really, really careful sometimes, okay? So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to take my geometry and Dynamesh and I'll just Dynamesh that together. I'm going to turn on project and see if that helps, but no, it doesn't. So we will just pop that up to there, Dynamesh. Yeah, that works really well. And now I will take my smooth brush, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into the brush settings under smooth, and under the curve, under edit curve, I'm going to reset that, and I'm going to drag the curve down about halfway. What that's going to let me do is keep the intensity of my smooth brush a bit higher, but still smooth out areas without destroying all the detail I've put in, okay? So it allows you to kind of keep more of the detail on your model and still smooth it in the correct way. And you can see that very quickly we now have a hippopotamus. It's not, all the detail isn't there, but the forms that we've created, now that we've joined it together and we're smoothing them all out and blending them into the same area, we can start to see that the amount of time we spent ensuring that all those forms were in place has really benefited us. Okay. And now we can start to sculpt in the rest. And we'll just start now adding a little bit more, some smaller details. Bring up our reference here. Now you will start to notice that we don't have a huge amount of topology yet. Okay, so we are going to be limited on exactly what it is that we can do. But we will have enough to create a more realistic looking creature. Because again, not having access to lots of topology will ensure that we focus on form rather than the details. And keeping it low like this allows us to refine the model without breaking it. So I can use my move brush safely without creating a lumpy feature on the character or on the creature. What's this? Well, Ryan Kingsling's one of the best people you can learn from, in my opinion. I've learned so much about anatomy through watching his videos. So yeah, if you've never heard of or checked out a Ryan Kingsling video, please do. His stuff's fantastic. He's actually the guy that introduced he designed the rake brush for Zbrush. So that's why we have the rake brush. Among other things as well, obviously. But yeah, it's one of the key things that he's added in to it. Okay. You get a bit sketchier here. Just add a bit more variation. And we've lost a little bit of our definition here. So I'm going to go into render here, turn on occlusion, just lower that a bit. So it's going to darken some of the edges, make it a bit easier to see. And we've got that nice flat surface. And this is where I now need to reshape the brows. So we're a little bit long with the brows, so we're going to pull them back. And we might also be a little bit long in the face as well. So let's bring, are we? No, it's not bad. I don't actually, do you know what I think it is? I think we're not wide enough. There we go. There we go. I'm going to start bringing in some of the folds. And again, I do have reference here, folks. I know I've only got this one up on the screen, but I have other reference off camera that I'm using. And I've just figured out why. It's because this brush isn't behaving the way I was expecting. It's because I still have depth on. So I just need to make sure I turn that back off before I sculpt. Now that's going to behave the way I expect it to. There we go. And from here we can now start to bring the rest of the eye shape forward, like so. Maybe dig a bit deeper into the snout area just to kind of create a little bit more shape and flatten this down. There's going to be forms that you miss, but you can see how quickly we're able to create a creature by blocking it out in a specific way and just really kind of taking that into consideration. So I'm now going to take my inflate brush and I'm just going to inflate, I'm going to lower the resolution here for the intensity. I'm just going to inflate this area around the neck just to get that nice, that kind of nice tight fold. And I've got a great image here that I'm going to bring up so that I can sculpt in this side of the head. And if you're ever unsure about kind of sculpting in a form, you can of course put it on a layer in ZBrush. Subfusion, hey Subfusion, thank you very much for coming along and thank you for saying hi. Good to have you here. You can mask something out or you can put it on a layer. So I've got a wrinkle here that I want to introduce. Quite a large, I say a wrinkle, it's a large fold. So I'm going to mask out the area first, like so. And give myself a lot of control over the shape of it. So I can taper it out, like so. And I can be a bit softer with the mask as I go up to the top. And if it calls for it, I can soften it out like so. And now I'm left with that. Now I can use either the inflate brush or I can use the inflate slider. So it's in the deformation rollout. And if I go under inflate, I can start to pull that out. It's going to be very subtle. I don't want it to be too intense. You can see that I can pull that out like so. And then if I go into the masking options, also, if you're in the tool rollout here on the right hand side, obviously by default, ZBrush will close one of the rollouts if you open another one. If you need to keep two of them open at any one time, so say I want to have deformation open, but I also want to have masking open at the same time, if I hold down the Shift key and tap on masking, it's going to allow me to open up both of those, okay? So I can turn off my mask, so I've got a better idea of what this inflate option is doing. So now I can see how that works a little bit better. You can also use inflate balloon to kind of build that up, but it's kind of looking a bit silly at this point, so we're going to undo it, go back to the mask, and I'm going to start again, but with inflate balloon. And I don't want this to be, in fact, do you know what we're going to do before we do this? I might actually do a morph target. Oh, I already have a morph target, that's fine. Okay, go back into deformation. How are we doing for time? Okay, hour and a half. So I'm just going to push that up a little bit and then smooth out the mask or smooth out the transition area. Okay, and then I'll take something like my standard brush and lower the intensity a bit. And I'm just going to lower the brush size and I'm just going to very, very subtly add a bit of a peak to that. And then using the alt version of the brush, I can start to add in a softer wrinkle. You can do so much in ZBrush without having to do anything custom. The brushes that they've designed will allow you to do basically anything. So don't worry about it. I mean, it can sometimes take a bit of extra work. That's why we have custom brushes, right? So if you look into the brush menu in ZBrush, a lot of the stuff, yes, it's very niche to certain features, but all the clay brushes, technically they are all based on I believe they're based on the standard brush, and then they're just adapted with different settings and different alphas to get you a different effect. So, because it's a brush system, right? It's just, the reason we have custom brushes is it's quicker for us, you know, because we're always in a rush. We're always in a rush, folks, right? So I'm going to take the inflate brush now, and I'm going to soften off this area in here, but inflate it at the same time. Okay. So now I'm going to bring the jaw together, and I don't know what's happened there. Why is that different? Okay, I don't know why that's different, but what we'll do anyway is we'll do a mirror and weld. And there must be something else in there that I've not taken into account. Oh, it's that bit. I don't need that bit. I can get rid of it. It's not needed. That's my bad. Okay, so now we will start pulling this together a bit more, like that. And I'm actually going to, what's that? That's 1000. So let's subdivide it once. Delete the lower. And I'm just, before we really commit to this, I want to make sure that the shape, because I'm getting a bit of a weird feeling with the side of that face there. Yeah, that needs a bit more shaping before we... Kogimaru, thank you very much for the follow. Much appreciated. And okay, I've said it before, I'm saying it again. We're just going to be brave. But we're not going to be that brave because we're going to save this before we do it. We're going to save before we commit to this. Okay. And then we'll just merge this down, hit OK, and we're going to hold Control and click. Oh, click here. And what I might do here is I might duplicate it and Dynamesh this together, just in case. So we'll Dynamesh, I'm going to increase it to 160 odd, and I will do a Dynamesh. Nothing seems to have changed too much, that's good. And now I can go in, and I can start cleaning up the join. And they do have they've got such great mouths, they really do. They're such cool creatures. Lost pressure sensitivity, dang, that's the first time today. That's actually unusual. So now I can use it to clean up the mouth a bit better. I knew I didn't have symmetry on, you know that? Actually, this is quite a good, this actually might be quite helpful. So you've seen me use Smart Resim before. It does actually work on a full object like this. If I mask out the area that I've sculpted without symmetry and then invert it and do Smart Resim, it might, I say might fix it. But then if I just leave it masked and do Smart Resim, it should only fix the bit on the other side that needs it, which it seems to have done. There we go. So I can turn symmetry back on and get sculpting. So folks, if you have never checked what that makes sense, yeah, it's just one of those things. It's just one of those little Zbrush shortkeys that's quite helpful to know about. Well, folks, we will be starting to wind down fairly soon, I'm hoping. We've still got some time though, so if anyone has any questions or queries about the project we're doing, the processes that we're using, then please do ask away. I'm just going to continue to refine our hippopotamus. So we should really do something with the eyes. We've not really done much. And they've lost quite a bit of their detail since we started to Dynamesh everything together. So I'm just going to use the damn standard here to outline the eye, and then I can use my sculpting brushes to just add in a bit more detail. I don't need much. I'm not looking to do much here. Again, a lot of the work that we do on this channel is more sketchy. It's more sketch style work that would then be worked up into a final model. Okay, so and that's something that we probably do a vote for on the Discord for Firestorm. So as I said before, be sure to check out the Firestorm Discord and join us. Join us. I have deliberately made this kind of smiling. I wanted to make it smile. So apologies if that's broken the realism a bit for people. So looks like this needs to be a bit thicker here. And then we're going to bring in the brow here and just flatten this area out. Just add a bit more form in there. That's all right, that's looking okay. Take our damn standard and just start adding in a few wrinkles. Nostrils don't look like the nostrils might actually be a bit too close together, right? Yeah, they totally are. But again, I'm looking at multiple references, so just like in humans, you're going to get a variety in the location of things like nostrils and things. So let's take one side of this now. We're going to mask out the nostril here on one side. Grab the move brush and literally just fold it over like that. Lift it up. Use a bit of the inflate brush just to plump up the volume. And yes, I deliberately said that in that way. For all my fellow millennials out there that like to pump up the volume. Pump up the volume. That one was just for Mario so he can make a shit post about it. Okay. So I'm not 100% happy with this yet, but we're getting there. But then again, I don't think we ever are 100% happy with anything that we sculpt or that we paint or that we draw, you know. All those confident people out there. I envy them. I am rarely happy. Well, I didn't say I wasn't happy. Okay, so I'm just going to now start add in a bit more. I mean, I could probably find a bit more reference. I should probably find a bit more reference for a more realistic, some more realistic anatomy for certain parts of this, but I think overall it's working quite well. Just going to use a couple of longer, broader strokes to cross the barrier of these two forms, or the forms under the chin. And let's just see what direction things are supposed to roll in on the side. That's kind of hard to figure out, but yeah, that looks all right. And then I'm going to take the brush here and just individual strokes in a certain direction, similar to if you're cross-hatching. And I do this and I kind of cross them over all these broad strokes, and I kind of bring them together and they kind of converge. And for my approach anyway, I find it helps me build up a natural layer for variation of skin. And it can take a little bit of time, but I think it works. I think it works quite well. The very light brush and very light strokes. Hey, got a question. Have you ever felt art sometimes is just tracing when entering learning mode, even if creating original character still feels that way? I think, I don't know if I would say tracing. I know what you mean. It feels like you're just copying somebody else's work, right? I get that. However, if you're just at the beginnings of something, you have to have some point of reference to copy from. And depending on how you started your journey in art, whether it was drawing comic books or cartoon characters or anything, you're going to have a point of reference for that. All right. So, and even when you're making something up that's original, right, you're still pulling reference from somewhere in order to create that original character. I would say that that's maybe some level of imposter syndrome, because you're like, you don't think that you might not think what you've done is good enough, because you feel like, I drew so many references in my life, I don't need it anymore. I guess I would have to politely disagree with that. I think you need references all the time, no matter what you're doing. But I think when it comes to, feeling as though we're tracing, we do feel as though that can be the case because we're copying from something. Like I said, you have a point of reference. What I would point you to in that regard is, if you look at the old masters, right? Da Vinci, Michelangelo, etc. They all had their assistants who would copy the master's work. That is how they learned, right? And that's how that's, in my opinion, is the best way to learn, is by copying somebody else's work and interpreting it into your own style. And then you eventually, the more you copy it, the more you start to develop your own style, the more you develop more confidence in your work, then you can kind of go off on your own. Whether or not it starts to feel like you're tracing when entering learning mode, honestly, again, I think that's more just, you have to get past that point before you can work in your own original way without feeling like that. I think it is just a confidence thing, really, or building confidence in yourself for your own work. So I'm not sure if that helps, Arian. I hope it does. I hope it helps somehow. What I would add is that, because you are learning, and anything that you put your mind to, you can do. So, because talent is, I'm going to use a really famous quote, talent is simply pursued interest. And a shiny gold coin to whoever tells me who that was. I am, of course, lying. I have no shiny gold coins to give you. But yes, talent is simply pursued interest. Anything you want to do, you can do. You just have to invest the time. Confident that I have my own OC idea. I'm going to build a game with own scratch art. Cool. That sounds like an awesome idea. And it can be a good way to kind of break out of that, like you say, that kind of like that learning mode, because you are going to be doing your own IP. So you won't have anything to kind of copy to. Do you know what I mean? You won't have any worry about that kind of tracing idea with it. Talent is pursued interest. I'll use that against my wife because her I'm not talented excuse for not doing stuff is very tiring. All right, folks. So I think we're now getting into that place where I'm starting to noodle on things. I've not done his ears. I feel so bad. I haven't done any of the ears here. Right, let's fix that. Let's fix that quick, shall we? We will go over if we have to, folks, because I think we can safely say that we've finished our hippopotamus. So we'll stay around until I feel I'm happy enough to call it done, if we will. And there's this lovely little form behind the ear that I want to plump out with the inflate brush. Probably going to change the matte cap shortly as well. Also, I want to point out, folks, that we are currently sitting at 322,000 points. You do not need to have a high-res mesh in order to do good form. You just need enough to ensure that you can actually sculpt the form you want. That is what you need. Unfortunately, I've made the eye area a bit too humanoid, so I'm now just fixing that. There we go, that's better. And again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you another little free trick here, folks, okay? I'm going to change the alpha to one of these, alpha 63, 62, or 61. I'm going to lower my intensity really low, and you will barely be able to see this, so I'm going to increase the intensity here. And I'm going to start cross-hatching across the surfaces like this. You can just see it. Okay. I'm not going to do this. This is like one of the fine line steps I do. And you can barely see it. And you just build it up. And what it will do is it will help you remove, and you make your brush size smaller and smaller as you go, as you overlap this. And what it will do is it will break down the surface slowly but surely. And it helps even the surface out without using the smooth brush. I'm all about trying to smooth out my surfaces without using the smooth brush. And again, this is another way I kind of try to indicate more realistic skin without going through custom alphas or anything like that at this stage. I just try to use what's there. So again, I'm going to go under here, I'm going to lower the size of my brush and just slowly back and forth. Though directional smooth is very useful and much underrated brush. Yes, there's a lot of brushes in, actually, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name actually, AD, I'm not really sure. So I hope I'm not pronouncing it wrong. But you do bring up a good point. That's actually something that we could show people. See, this is another thing why streaming's fun, because people remind me of things, okay? So what Ida is talking about is that there's brushes in ZBrush. There's other brushes that you might not be aware of. So we've got a lot here, right? And if you go down, there's a whole bunch of different smooth brushes, which have now been added into the kind of main, the main tool set. Smooth Alt, Smooth Cloth, Smooth Peaks, Smooth Valleys, okay? But if we go into the light box and go under brushes, let me just bring this up a bit. There we go. In here, you will find a whole plethora of other brushes. So if we go into the smooth brushes here, we've got smooth part, smooth subdiv, smooth directional, which we'll look in a second, smooth perpendicular, smooth valence, peaks, and different variations of smooth strength. And smooth groups is one of my favorites as well. But if I go with smooth direction, ZBrush is going to give us a pop-up here. And it's going to tell us that when we press the shift key, this button is going to replace our original smooth brush, just so that we're aware of it. So we say, okay. And now, don't know how well it'll work on my model, but you can see that as I smooth with it, it smooths in the direction. So it's less likely, it smooths in the direction that I'm sculpting, right? So it's less likely to destroy my detail. But again, if you take any smooth brush and go in and adjust the curve so that you don't have this bell curve on it, or not even bell curve, but you don't want this harshness to it. You want it to be a little bit more linear, and just bring that down. And then that will make it a little bit better to work with. Okay, so let's just do, I want to do a little bit more work on the ears and the eye. I'm going to turn off the occlusion, and I'm going to increase the thickness of the eye here, just to inflate that up a bit. There we go. Take away some of the humanoid nature of it, make it a wee bit smaller. There we go. This is where we might, for the next part, we might need to increase the subdivisions so we can add a bit more detail to it, but we'll see how we go. Oh, I'm using clay tubes, that's not what I wanted to do. I'm just going to reset this brush. There we go. All right, do a quick save. Hippo number 5. And let's now switch over to a different matte cap. So we'll go into projects, custom, materials, and what should we do here? Let's do, there we go, do a Marlon Nunez. Hopefully that's fairly easy for everyone to see. There we go. So you can see the difference that the actual material can make, right? But I'm quite happy with this as a starting point for a further creature. So let's take a look at how we could potentially, I mean, I don't know, we might not really take it that far, but I would quite like to add a bit of extra detail if we can, using some brushes. So we're going to go into projects, and I'm going to choose some brushes here. Where are we? Let me see, creatures. What have we got? Okay, let's try into collections. This might be a bit much. Let's see. Oh no, that's good. We can use that. We can use that one. So I'm going to, how much time do we have? We're at the 2-hour mark. So I actually don't want to, I'm going to move that down there. Turn it off. So we've got the head, and let's do another occlusion pass. Let's lower the intensity a bit. Sorry folks, I'm just looking, it's not standing out enough for me. We're going to have to change the material again, folks, sorry. Again, I mean, it's something I would work with. I'd quite happily sculpt with that, but again, I don't want it to be harder for anyone to see. I want to make sure that everyone can see what's going on. So let me think here. What should we do? That'll do, we'll use the blue one. So what I'm going to do here is I am actually going to, remember we have a Dynamesh here, right? So what we'll do is we're going to hold down Control and click on our timeline here, and we're going to do a Z-remesh. And what we're at 322,000, so we'll do 10, we'll maybe make this 15, make it quite high, and then do Z-remesher. I don't know if, oh, that's taken quite a while. That's not bad. Okay, and it's done it symmetrically. So we've got a decent base to work on. Now, I want to stress this. If you wanted to do this for animation, I would never use Z-remesher. Never. I'm not doing it for animation, so I don't need to manually retopologize it, so I can use Z-remesher. But if it's going to be for a production, either be it games, animation, VFX, you have to. And I will argue this till the end of time. You have to do it manually. So you have full control over your retopology. You can choose where things go, and you can have full control over the optimization of it. Okay. So now I'm just going to hold a morph target here. So I'm going to store morph target, subdivide it a couple of times till we're a bit higher, step down to the lowest subdiv, hit the switch button, move up to the subdivisions again, delete the morph target, and then store one again. Okay, so what this will do is it removes the smoothness that ZBrush can introduce when you're subdividing your model. So by holding the object in a morph target, it keeps that original size, and we can bring that back with the morph target. Okay, now I am going to hopefully, okay, that did not keep it, so I'm going to do that there. And now I'm going to go to Subtool, Project, and I'm going to choose Turn Off Color, Project History. There we go. So now we have all that nice, or say nice, now we have all that detail from our Dynamesh. And now I can go through and just do a little bit of an extra smooth across a few areas. Don't want to do too much because I still want to keep some of this nice additional wrinkle detail in. But it is going to allow us to smooth back some of the areas. And if we needed to, we could refine some more of the detail here in the eye. So if I use the standard brush, I can start to introduce that a little bit more. There we go. The eyes are so important as well. Just lower that. There we go. That's better. That's looking a little bit more realistic now. Okay. So as I said, we're going to go into our creature brushes here. These are from Pablander, so I'm sure many of you know who he is, and they might not be perfect for what we're about to do, but it'll give us a quick indication. That is not the folder I needed. I need my brushes. And a lot of the time, some of the things I will do that I'm be hired to do is it's not really concept modeling, but it's because I'm not really designing a concept, but it is to kind of create, I guess, a conceptual idea of something they already have, or like a real creature and stuff. So I will knock out a model like this, and I'll use whatever tools I've got to kind of add, kind of indicate, to indicate the kind of detail that we're looking for, that type of thing. So what's this? What's this one? Oh no, that's like a proper monster. Let's try this. That's that one again. Weird. Why are these not changing? There we go. Yeah, we'll use this one. So I'm going to lower the, and one thing I might do here as well is I'll step up to the highest subdiv and I'll make myself a layer. And here's something that isn't normally highlighted with ZBrush, is that if you have a layer, you can subdivide down. You can go down a level and still work on that layer. It isn't highlighted in the layers palette though. This is something I think that they need to change to make it a little bit more obvious that we're actually still working in a layer, even though we're at a lower subdivision level. It's fair enough keeping it that we have to add the layer at the highest subdivision. I get that. It's got to be added at the top level. But even if it was, I don't know, there was like a highlight around the layer to let you know it was still active at these lower subdivisions. Just a thought. I am sure that there's nobody from Maxon watching, so it'd be nice if there was, but I'm sure there isn't. So I'm just going to drag these out really quick, like so. Varying the size of the brush as I get closer in, overlapping it. Like so. I'm going to turn off symmetry here now, and I'm going to start just building it up along the top of the head. Because this is where I want to start introducing a little bit more randomization. And it's amazing what you can do with just the one alpha, as long as you rotate it and you're careful about how you place it. You'll notice I'm not using symmetry at this stage as well. I want to do, you know, we're going to do the eyes differently as well. I'm not going to use this one. Okay, so now in order to finish off this kind of in-between detail, what I'm going to do is switch over to my standard brush. I'm going to change the stroke type to spray. I'm going to change the alpha to alpha 56. And when I do that, watch what happens. That's the effect I get. So if I lower the resolution here, and I'm gentle about how I sculpt on the surface, I'm using a standard brush inside a ZBrush, ships with it, and I'm able to sculpt out very realistic detail very quickly. I know it's quite hard to see at this point, so let's put the and again, I'm not doing this symmetrically, I'm doing it manually because I want to create that. I want to break the symmetry that way. Because the one thing that will be really obvious is alpha detail if you've got it on symmetrically, okay? All right, folks, so, and if we want to break this up again even further, we can switch over to something like the alpha 57. So it's the same idea, it's just going to give us a different effect. And if you don't like the orientation, you can change it. Same as you can in something like ZBrush. Sorry, in Photoshop. Sorry, we're in ZBrush. If I go into Alpha and modify, you can rotate it. So if I can just figure out how to do that. Where is it? Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, there we go. You can flip it and rotate it and such like that. And I'm pretty sure there is an angle adjust as well, but I can't seem to see that at the moment. Anyway, so the one I actually prefer using is Alpha 60, but in here I'll have to invert it. So if I just choose inverse, now I can add even more in here. There we go. Switch back over to, oh, wrong one, Alpha 56. There we go. And you can just jump between these different alphas. Need to inverse that again. There we go. Again, it's a quick sketch, folks, to get us somewhere a little bit more realistic. And they've got all these lovely little pock marks on their face, so we can go into drag rectangle. We'll grab something like, let me see here, what would be a good one? Maybe, let's try Alpha 38, and we'll put the sub version on, and we'll just see if this is going to let us do this. There we go. So just bring up my reference. Whoa, Pure Ref just completely crapped out there. There we go. Now I can start to add in. Have you saved recently? No, I have not. That would be a catastrophe. It would be a catastrophe, wouldn't it? So I don't know if I like those. So what I might do is might do a spray stroke for that and see if that works better. Oh, cancel. Oh, I know what I can do. We'll use something like Alpha 7 and do a drag rectangle on this. There we go. So we'll lower that down. Lower the intensity even further. And just keep building it up. And that's the thing, whenever you're doing kind of detail, it's just layering it up. And this is why it's always a good idea to put it onto layers, and then you can dial in what you want. Like so. So I think we'll leave it like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off this layer here. Now, one of the things that also doesn't really work that well with layers in ZBrush is when you're painting with it, right? You can do it, but I prefer not to because it tends to break. Sorry about that, folks. We lost the connection to OBS, just dropped out there for a second. So I hope you can all hear me. Let me know if you can't. We're not going to be here for much longer, but we're not going to be... Okay, so like I said, we can adjust the detail that we've put on here. So you can see that I can drag this detail on and off now, right? So what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to dial it down. I don't want it to be as extreme as that. I want it to be something along these lines, okay? And then I'm going to bake it down. So now it's baked onto my model. And I think the last thing we'll do a little bit of paint work. So I'm going to take this image here and I'm going to remove it. Then I'm going to save my file. That's definitely something I'm going to do before we crash ZBrush. And then I'm going to go under texture, down to image plane. Oh, and into load image, and I'm going to bring that into the same image in. So bear with me. Projects, reference, and I'm going to bring this in. Now what that'll do is ZBrush will put it on the back of my viewport. And what this is going to allow me to do is actually sample some colors, which I cannot do otherwise. But what I can do here is if I grab the image plane, it's actually going to allow me to clear off the back canvas and then move this to the side. And then if I just hit Shift S, that will always be on my canvas. I can bring back our hippopotamus. And we can start painting, okay? So I'm going to maybe make this a bit lighter, a bit grayer as well. There we go. I can add the color in later if I want to. So we'll do this and I'll just do a fill object. Oh, wait a minute, RGB, fill object, okay? If I press V, I can switch over to this color here, grab my paintbrush, change the alpha to alpha 7, spray stroke, put the color to 0, and I can now start by first lowering the intensity of that, turn on my symmetry, and actually we're going to do alpha, lower the opacity, and we're just going to do something like this. There we go. That's what we want. Lower that intensity even further. Really low intensity, and just build up the layers like so. I'm going to take the same color and just lighten it up a bit. Press V to swap over to it. Just start introducing that a little bit into the eye area. There we go. And we need to get a little bit of the stronger color in the ears as well. There we go. Increase the intensity if you really need to, but generally I try and work with much lower values when I'm in ZBrush. And there we go. I'm going to take this color, I'm just going to put the slightest touch of purple into there. And with a really low intensity, I'll start just bringing that in. And then something I like to do as well to finish when I'm kind of doing a quick paint over sketch like this is I'll take the paint stroke to drag rectangle. I'll change the alpha to alpha 22, which is a bunch of veins, and then I'll put in some kind of very saturated, kind of desaturated greens, and I will just start to, you can do purples and stuff as well, just basically start to, you can barely see them, that's the idea. You can see that I'm just bringing these, introducing these into the skin, and it just adds a nice bit of subtle breakup. You can barely see them, that's the idea, you're not supposed to be able to see them very well. You can do the same with alpha 60 if we invert it. So we'll just do invert that again, and I can start to add in a bit of breakup to the skin. But I think what I'll do is I'll take a couple of the dots here, spray stroke, and I'm going to bring in a nice light version of this colour here, and just bring that over some of the, there we go. Really low intensity. Maybe switch up the dark variant as well. And this is a painting technique I learned from Maddie Scott Spencer. She taught me how to paint like this. And taught me these techniques. And the last thing we kind of need to do, I suppose, is maybe reduce the, there we go, reduce the intensity of that. And our material could probably do with a bit of specular. So I'm just going to save again. I must be honest, folks, I really enjoy doing streams in the afternoon. There's a little bit more energy. I certainly have a bit more energy than doing them in the evenings. And my stream will be continuing at 2 o'clock from Monday. Okay, so if anyone's interested in kind of coming along, what time are we at? Okay, we're 8 minutes in again, but we've kind of had to extend because we had some problems. So I'm going to add a bit of color into here. That's quite nice. Oh, too much. Really low, a bit darker. Okay. And we'll finish off by adding some speck into the material. So to do that, I'm going to close up my, I'm going to minimize my tool palette here, grab my material and drag that over to the right hand side. Just open this up. And now I can actually start to play around with the material that I've applied to this. So I'm going to play with the specular a bit more. There we go. There we go. I think that's enough. I don't want... Yeah, that's fine. I can work with that. So what we'll do is we'll clear off our background. And there we go. Let's just get that round like so. If we do a PBR render, it's going to look like that. I quite like I've always liked ZBrush's viewport for renders. I know it sounds a bit crazy, but I do just quite like the effect that it has. So there we go, folks. All right. So we are now at the end of our stream. We went over, oh, excuse me, as I punch my drawing tablet there. We went over by a little bit, but I think it was kind of needed so that we could finish off our hippo. So yes, in about 2.5 hours, we've went from, let's save as. Let's actually look at where we started and where we finished. So I'm going to clear that off like so. Load a tool, and I'm going to go back to Hippo GTL. There we go. So I'll probably do this as a render as well, so that maybe we can use it for marketing. And there we go. And there we go, folks. So yes, we started off with a nice block out like this, and we finished with a fairly decent facsimile, if you will, of a hippopotamus. Well done, Pat. Thanks, Polly. I love this. My favourite sculpt so far. Excellent work. Thanks, Holly. I really appreciate that. It was really fun to do, and I would like to do more of these type of sculpts as we kind of progress through, because the idea was to do creatures, and we've done a lot of kind of fantasy style creatures and things like that, but I do love just doing standard nature stuff. So I'm going to try and integrate that more, and we're going to do a little bit more realism over the next few streams, or real animals, and then we might go back to the more kind of like cryptid style ones. So I'm glad, I do hope everyone enjoyed the stream so far, or today. I will be back next Monday. Sorry, next Monday. I will be back on Monday, and I will be streaming at 2 o'clock, and we will be moving on to the letter I. I do not know what that's going to be yet. We'll just have to wait and see. But I want to thank everyone who came along, everyone who said hi, who asked questions. I hope you've gotten something out of today's live stream. We will be back. Let me just check to what the current stream schedule is. Okay, so tomorrow we will be back. Oh no, we're not. My apologies. We do not have a stream scheduled for tomorrow or Thursday, but Friday at 6 AM we will have Carmen. She's going to be doing some fantastic work in Houdini, and then on Friday evening we're going to have the one and only Peter Ocampo, who's going to be doing some creature concept art. So please check both of those artists out. Carmen and Pete are fantastic people. They're crazy good artists, and you will learn a lot from them. So please do tune into those if you can. And just a last little reminder, please make sure to follow us on Instagram, over on YouTube, and over on Twitch as well. And if you want to, please feel free to join our Discord, and you can come along and hang out with some of the people from the Firestorm team, as well as a whole community of fantastic and very supportive artists. So until then, folks, enjoy the rest of your week, and all being well, I'll see you all next Monday. Bye for now.